As New Orleans Saints training camp comes to a close, we've learned a lot about the New Orleans Saints offense. Jameis Winston looks ready to pick up where he left off. Michael Thomas looks like he's going to be more of a 3-level threat. And Alvin Kamara is still really, really good. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints, your team every day.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert, credentialed member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com. USA Today's Saints Wire, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. And this episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at Brightco Jewelry and Watch Insurance. Make sure you check out Brightco today because they're bringing you comprehensive, fast, and affordable jewelry insurance for less than or right around $5 per month. So check out your special offer for you, your Locked On Saints listeners, so that you can get covered in less than 2 minutes over at bright.co/locked on. That's bright.co/locked on. On today's episode, we're going to get to your questions, including whether or not this New Orleans Saints offense plans to air it out more in 2022. We'll also break down our 53-man roster projection ahead of Friday's game, taking a look at the offensive side of the ball. But first, what did we learn about the New Orleans Saints during training camp? Well, the fact of the matter is that we learned they're going to be a very, very good offense. If you missed yesterday's episode, you'll want to go back after this to go and check that out, where I broke down why it is the New Orleans Saints offense will be good in 2022. But here's a quick recap for you. Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. That's pretty much all you need. Now, there's also a very good starting offensive line. Oh, there's also Jarvis, Landry, and Chris Olave. Oh, there's also a revamped tight end room that looks to be a factor in 2022. Oh, and there's also Pete Carmichael at the helm, who has been sort of the pioneer of the New Orleans Saints offense as we know it since 2006 and beyond. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons actually for you to be excited about this New Orleans Saints offense, but we learned a lot of what we expected was true going into 2022. Thanks to New Orleans Saints training camp. There's no reason to expect this New Orleans Saints offense to be what it was, which was not a lot, in 2021, particularly the passing game. They're in a much better situation in terms of what they were versus what they're going to be going into 2022. And that's very important to keep in mind and keep perspective of. We watched for weeks, 20 practices, and now 2 preseason games with the third preseason game on the way, how this New Orleans Saints offense has been able to find ways to function over the course of its time. And the thing about it is that without, or as opposed to what it was like in 2021, where it had to literally scrape the bottom of the barrel to find ways to produce in the passing game, this year, all of the weapons are there. And they have been from the very beginning. You look at Michael Thomas, who showed up right at the beginning of training camp. Jameis Winston, who was a part of OTAs, participating in OTAs. Jarvis, Landry, and what he adds. Chris Olave, and what he's added. And you look at sort of these weapons in the passing game in particular, and what we saw over the course of training camp is that Michael Thomas isn't just going to be, he's not just going to run slants. Now, I know the sort of stigma around slants to where, oh, well, that's all he did. But if you take away all of his slant yardage from 2019, the year that he broke the record, he still leads the league in receiving yards, over 1,400 receiving yards at that point. So, but still, I mean, even if you are in that camp and you believe that the majority of his production came from slants, you would be happy to find now that during the course of this offseason, we've seen more of a 3-level attack when it comes to Michael Thomas with Jameis Winston. Michael Thomas working in the short and intermediate areas. Yes, of course, his ability to run digs, create separation, run outs, create separation, to fly across the middle of the field, all of those things are absolutely still there. But now we've also seen him get a little bit further down the field. We've seen more depth in his routes with Jameis Winston at quarterback. So that's a huge bonus in terms of what you can get from Michael Thomas now, because all of a sudden, this New Orleans Saints offense that likes to stretch defenses and attack defenses laterally, as Jameis Winston highlighted for us today in his presser, now all of a sudden has the opportunity to attack vertically, not just because Chris Olave is on one side, though, but because they're going to utilize Michael Thomas in deeper areas of the field. So don't rule out Michael Thomas not necessarily running a 9, but running a post. Not necessarily running a fly route, but still finding ways to get loose up there with a slant and go, or maybe even a slant corner. So there's a lot of different ways now that you're going to be able to see Michael Thomas get utilized. And now he has the complementary wide receivers on the opposite side in Jarvis Landry, who can run those underneath routes when they don't have Michael Thomas running those, who can run the intermediate routes or the crossing routes with Michael Thomas that ends up working either of them open 10 plus yards down the field, 5 plus yards down the field. You'll take that. Then you have the field stretcher in Chris Olave that has shown you time and time again over the course of this training camp that he's more than just a 3rd level threat, and that he is indeed a 3-level threat because he can run those slants. He can come in underneath. He can run those drag routes and utilize his long field speed going across the field, attacking defenses laterally, as opposed to only attacking defenses vertically. So it takes sort of a couple of years ago when we talked about, hey, getting a guy like Brashad Perryman would make a lot of sense for this New Orleans Saints offense because of what he can do in terms of stretching the field vertically and pairing him up with Jameis Winston. Now you get a better version of that because he's got more than just the downfield routes. He's able to be such a technical route runner for you that he can run the entire route tree. So you have the digs that you can run with Chris Olave. You have the slants, the outs, the comebacks, the hitches. You can do all of that with Chris Olave. It's not just, all right, kid, go out there and run as fast as you can down the field and get everybody out of the way so that we can open a zone underneath to attack with a tight end or a running back. No. You have this guy that can now be a 3-level threat right along with your other 2 3-level threats in Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas. And oh, by the way, Jameis Winston has been very careful with the football and has been making right decisions as opposed to focusing on making big decisions, which is something that he had been saying that, he learned from Drew Brees, and something that you knew he was going to be working on coming into this offseason and into this season was that sort of short and intermediate area of the field. Some of it because of the knee, right? He had to do so much he could only do so much while that knee was recovering, where he wasn't able to push the ball 40, 50 yards down the field. So he worked in the short and intermediate area. He kind of called it a blessing in disguise. So you've seen the development there, and you've seen his developing connection with Alvin Kamara, who he referred to again on Wednesday as the best running back he's played with in his entire life, which was a list that included like Dalvin Cook, for instance. And he did highlight, yes, that Dalvin Cook was a freshman when he played with him. He did highlight that. Don't get me wrong. But still, he has a lot of faith. He has a lot of trust, and he has a lot of respect for who Alvin Kamara is and what he does out on the field. And Alvin Kamara looks just as quick as ever. He looks like he's making the cuts the same way that he's made the cuts, which back in 2017-18 made him special. And of course, people want to tell you that, based on 2021's production, that Alvin Kamara is going to be bad in 2022, which is just ridiculous, by the way. Like, you should never look at a team from the year before and say, based on how they performed in 2021, that's how they're going to be in 2022. And you certainly shouldn't do that about an individual player either, especially considering individual players that had 58 different starters around them, 4 different quarterbacks throwing to them, 4 different kickers all throughout the season, so on and so forth. You know the story. This New Orleans Saints offense is going to be good in 2022. I told you yesterday, I'm telling you again today. But I'm telling you today because we're highlighting what we learned about this New Orleans Saints offense over the course of training camp. That's one of the big things that we learned, is that this offense has everything that it needs. I haven't even talked about the fact that Juwan Johnson bulked up and looks like a legitimate seam attack beast going into 2022. So has Adam Troutman, actually. I know he's been hurt over the course of the recent past, here recently, but all throughout camp, when he's been available on the field, he's looked excellent, and he's been somebody that's been able to attack the seam, and that has been a solid blocker. And now you have Taysom Hill, who's focusing full time on actually learning the position that some would say, is best at when it comes to being a pass catcher. For the first time, he's actually in the tight end room. He's actually learning the position. You take all of that and you put that behind a solid offensive line that returns 4 of its 5 starters from last season, including one of the smartest players in football in Eric McCoy. And what do you think this team is going to do in 2022 on the offensive side? It's going to be good. And I'm not just saying that because we've assumed it. I'm saying it because we've learned it, because we've watched it. Now, in order for that offense to really be able to take shape, you need to know what the roster is going to look like. This Friday's preseason game is going to be one big last opportunity for a lot of players to realize their dreams as NFL players, whether it be on the 53-man roster or the 16-man practice squad. So let's start off with the 53-man roster on the offensive side. I'll tell you right now who I think makes the roster, and then we'll revisit after Friday's preseason game. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. But first, it's my great pleasure to tell you about our friends over at Brightco. I was watching a couple of videos here not too long ago that have these guys that like end up trying to propose on a dock, and then they drop the engagement ring, and it goes in between the slats of the dock and just like dips into the pond. Or people trying to propose at like a sporting event, right? Like a football game or something like that, drops the ring and then rolls who knows where. Like imagine trying to propose in the 600 section and then dropping your ring. That's what Brightco is here for, so that you don't have to feel nervous about those moments. And so that instead of you thinking, oh, what if I drop it? What if this happens? Blah, blah. You get the peace of mind of knowing that your piece of jewelry is insured. And then you're able to propose with the confidence that you need for such a momentous moment. And the guys over at Brightco, they're just pure geniuses. They made buying insurance for your engagement ring, your watch, or whatever so friggin' easy that you can get it all covered in 2 minutes on your cell phone. So you're not gonna find a better deal on great coverage that's any more super affordable than what you can find with Brightco. Make sure you check them out. It's bright.co/locked on. That's bright.co/locked on. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Big thank you once again for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day. Don't forget that coming up on the 31st of August, we're going to get you started with the NFL season preview that you have been waiting for. The Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 begins August 31st, going division by division to get all of those questions that you have answered ahead of the 2022 NFL season. Once again, that is the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. Find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. Now let's get to the Ultimate New Orleans Saints roster projection 2022 ahead of the Los Angeles Chargers game here on Friday. So I'm going to do offense today. This is coming out Wednesday night, will serve as the Thursday episode. So there won't be a Thursday morning episode or anything like that where this is rolling into Thursday. And then Thursday night, there will be a Friday episode, which will give you the defensive preview. And then Friday night after the game, we'll get an episode for you, an extra episode for you. So that, making sure that you're getting as much as I can get you over the course of the next 36 hours or so. So we'll start here with a roster projection going into the preseason game. But Dennis Allen remarking earlier today, New Orleans Saints head coach, that, hey, this preseason game is pretty big for people that are trying to realize their NFL dreams here. So I wanted to kind of set up a barometer here so that we can get kind of an early look at what the roster looks like right now, but then how things could change going into those roster cuts, which are going to be due Tuesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Central Time. Okay, we'll start off at quarterback, of course, most important position on the team. I do think the New Orleans Saints only keep two quarterbacks, Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. I think Ian Book is easy to, you get him over to the practice squad and you have him. You've got somebody that knows your system. You have a great emergency quarterback in that situation. But if you need an in-game emergency quarterback, you've already got one built in at tight end with Taysom Hill. We'll come back to tight end here in a little bit. Running back, I actually have the Saints only keeping 3 running backs. This is a little bit out of the ordinary for them. Usually they keep 4 running backs and a fullback. But right now I've got them keeping Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, and Tony Jones Jr. Tony Jones Jr. has just done a really good job over the course of the preseason so far. I thought Dwayne Washington, after his opening action, to start off the preseason in the first preseason game, I thought that he was well on his way to a roster spot, but now he's been dealing with injury. Now he was back on Wednesday, but he was only present and spectating. He's probably not going to be able to play Friday, so he loses a little bit of those reps. And I think that might put him behind in terms of an opportunity to make at least the initial 53-man roster. Remember, the initial 53-man roster is always different like the very next day and is different again after week 1 when contracts are non-guaranteed and all that. I do think that the New Orleans Saints, though, keep a fullback. So that's Adam Prentice. I've still got them keeping him. People talk about Adam Prentice like he's an additional offensive lineman. The running backs love running behind him. I think that is something that maintains from the Sean Payton days with Dennis Allen. At wide receiver, I've got the Saints keeping 6 wide receivers. Michael Thomas, Jarvis, Landry, Chris Olave, Deontay Hardy, to me are all locks. I've got them keeping Marquez Callaway, who had the play of the day on Wednesday and has several highlights. And I just think that his energy is something that they really respect as well. Like, he is an absolute spark plug for that New Orleans Saints wide receiver room. So I think there's a lot of value in that for him. And he is also a fantastic blocker, loves to get into the mix there. He doesn't care if it's a defensive end, if it's a defensive tackle, it's a linebacker, if it's a secondary player. He loves to get involved in all that and do some of that dirty work. The 6th wide receiver that I have the Saints keeping might come as a little bit of a surprise, but it's part of the reason why I had the Saints only keeping 3 running backs. I'm plugging in Kirk Merritt. I'm doing it. I'm plugging in the Destrehan native as making the 53-man roster. That means Traquan Smith out. That means Dejon Dixon to the practice squad, which I still think he would see some key elevations in terms of matchup potential there because he's huge and remarkably athletic and would be a very, very good insurance policy for guys like Marquez Callaway and even to an extent Michael Thomas, just in terms of the build and role that he can play. I'm not comparing the two in terms of talent. I wouldn't give Dejon Dixon that unfair of a comparison or that fair of an expectation. I'm just saying in terms of their role, their stature, it's similar. So the big question here is, does Kirk Merritt count in the running back room or does he count in the wide receiver room? I've got him counting in the wide receiver room, kind of like what the Saints did with Ty Montgomery in the past. I think Rashid Shaheed is a player that goes to, let's just say the Saints find a way to keep him around, right? I wouldn't be surprised to see Rashid Shaheed end up on injured reserve or something like that. You know what I mean? Or end up on the practice squad and then, them keep him stored away until next year because Deontay Hardy's in a contract year. So that's your skill. Oh, no, sorry. And then tight ends, I've got Adam Trautman, Taysom Hill, Gardner-Johnson, Nick Van Ette. No surprises there. I think I think that Lucas Kroll has done some good things, but I don't think that he's done enough to leap Nick Van Ette. You need another blocking tight end if you're going to keep Taysom Hill and Gardner-Johnson. So I think Adam Trautman and Nick Van Ette make the most sense, and Nick Van Ette doesn't cost you a lot of money. Quick skilled position player recap. Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton at quarterback, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, Tony Jones Jr. at running back, Adam Prentice gets the call in at fullback. 6 wide receivers, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, Deontay Hardy, Marquez Callaway, and Kirk Merritt. And then tight ends, Adam Trautman, Taysom Hill, Gardner-Johnson, Nick Van Ette. Now we'll wrap up with the offensive line. At offensive tackle, I've got the Saints keeping Ryan Ramczyk, James Hurst, Trevor Penning, and Landon Young. All of those guys were back at practice today. Very good to see, or on Wednesday, so very good to see that. I do think that if both healthy, Penning and Hurst, that Hurst starts the season at left tackle, but I would not be surprised to see Penning eventually claim that role over the course of the season. Not even talking about injury there. At centers, I've got Eric McCoy, Nick Martin. Nick Martin's really your only natural, true center left on the roster outside of Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz. And then I've got at guard, Andres Pete, Cesar Ruiz, and Calvin Throckmorton, who can play either side. Kalike Washington's pretty close for me, too. I'm not going to lie. I thought that he has had a pretty good camp so far. Josh Andrews has done all right, too. And he's somebody that has some center versatility for you as well. So that's what I'm looking at. Again, on the offensive line, Ramczyk, Penning, Hurst, Young, Eric McCoy, Nick Martin, Cesar Ruiz, Andres Pete, Calvin Throckmorton. Just for the sake of it, special teams is obviously Will Lutz, Blake Gillikin, and Zach Boyd. Blake Gillikin just had an 81-yard punt. Make of that what you will. 59-yard field goal from Will Lutz in Green Bay. Make of that what you will, but you're feeling pretty good about special teams going into 2022. So those are my predictions. Tell me where you agree. Tell me where you disagree. Tell me what I got right. Tell me what I got wrong. And then tomorrow or on Friday, Thursday night into Friday, we'll get into the defensive side. Coming up next, are the New Orleans Saints going to air it out in 2022? I spoke a little bit about what things are looking like for Michael Thomas, but what does it look like for the offense as a whole? We'll break that down and answer your questions from today's live stream as we continue on to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Before we get to that, I want to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. Talked about it a bunch of times before. If you're a small business owner, you're looking at making sure that you're being able to talk to and even potentially hire the people that you want faster, LinkedIn is the place to do it because you can do it for free at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs was voted, and LinkedIn has been voted number 1 when it comes to delivering when it comes to delivering quality hires versus leading competitors to small businesses. Why is that important? Because if you get a bunch of leading competitors, but you're not getting the quality hires, is that really that good for you? No. That's why LinkedIn Jobs is number 1. See, there's some symmetry here too. LinkedIn, Locked On, makes sense. So there's delivering the quality hires at a higher percentage amongst those leading candidates. So an important designation there. This is a professional network, the world's largest professional network of 810 million people and counting. It's really, really cool. So you get to add your job there. You get simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to make sure that you narrow it down to the right skills and experience that you're looking for. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidate that you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? That's a ton of people. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Once again, that's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode with your questions from earlier today's live episode. We're going to start off here with Clint F., who asked, are the Saints really going to open up the offense for this season and take more shots downfield? Clint, here's how I would explain it to you. And first of all, thank you very much for the question and for making sure that you're checking out Locked On Saints, free and available on all platforms every Monday through Friday and more here on the show. The first thing that I would say to you is this. This New Orleans Saints offense is an offense that will always be predicated on what it can do in the short and intermediate areas and attacking defenses horizontally, attacking them laterally, as opposed to only attacking vertically. Jameis Winston kind of highlighted that in Wednesday's press conference when he spoke about the offenses that he has been a part of in the past wanting to attack vertically, Bruce Arians, and then now sort of being in this offense that by nature of the offense, he is looking sideline to sideline, going through full field reads and progressions and looking for opportunities for checkdowns and to be able to nickel and dime down the field. The sort of death by paper cuts, meticulous approach of Drew Brees wasn't just Drew Brees, it was indeed the New Orleans Saints offense. It's part of the West Coast part of the offense. But remember, the New Orleans Saints offense for a long time has been a blend of not only West Coast, but also the Air Coryell offense. The Air Coryell offense was one that went vertical, that wanted to attack downfield. It's why you always saw the little dump offs to Darren Sproles and Pierre Thomas, but also the deep shots to Robert Meacham and Devery Henderson in the glory days of the New Orleans Saints offense. And of course, you can throw Jimmy Graham in that equation in 2011 as well. So with that being the case, what I would say is that this New Orleans Saints offense will open up this season and take more shots downfield than it did last season. But will this offense become predicated on the downfield ball? No. It will still be one that will move by its run game and utilizing its short, quick passing attack as an extension of that run game in order to set up those shots downfield. When those shots downfield become the right decision as opposed to the big decision, they will take advantage of those opportunities when the defense gives it to them. All right, let's go to Brad 27. Question. Is there any current news on CJ Gardner-Johnson? I haven't noticed much on him lately. Is he still wanting a contract extension? I imagine that, yes, he is still wanting a contract extension, but at this point, I do not imagine that the contract extension is going to be in place before the season starts. That does not mean that the New Orleans Saints won't get a contract extension done after the season starts, which is something that they've done before over the course of the past couple of years. We've seen that with Demario Davis a couple of weeks into the season. We also saw that with Marshawn Lattimore last year after the first game of the season, where he completely shut down Devontae Adams. So pretty good day to get a contract in that case. So what I will tell you is that he's played well in practice and he's had his ups and downs that come with playing cornerback, right? Like there have been plays to where, the receiver has beat him or he's been beat to the outside, but then there's also been days where he's snagging one-hand interceptions and things like that. So it's just the nature of the position that he plays to an extent. But at the same time, what you like to see is, can he respond? And he responded. He actually had a pretty good day today as well, number 22 did. So I do think that there's all good news on the front when it comes to CJ Gardner-Johnson and his ability to be able to impact games in 2022. Doesn't look like it's going to be impacted by whether or not a contract gets done, but perhaps instead it serves as more motivation to make sure that he performs as best as he can so that that contract does get done at some point sooner rather than later. Otherwise, the Saints are going to be, paying out their back ends in order to keep him in New Orleans if he has that great season in 2022. Otherwise, the Saints are going to have to find somebody to replace him. And again, like I've said, you can replace him at the position, i.e. you can put a body there, but can you really fill his role? That takes multiple players. All right, let's go to Brandon Biggs next. Is there a player that you would be more inclined to keep knowing that he won't make it through waivers? I think that the only ones for me that are guys that are like, they probably won't make it through waivers. That all for me comes down to the veterans that are on the roster. So guys like Nick Martin, guys like Nick Van Nett, guys on the defensive side like Atano Passanio. So these guys that, you can keep 6 players that have had more than, 2 or 3 years of experience, and everyone else has to be 2 or less, right? So on the practice squad. And so I think that there's kind of that part of it in terms of accrued seasons, that those veterans are probably less likely to make it through. But usually when it comes to guys like the rookies or the undrafted free agent rookies, or even guys that are, early on in their first or second year of their careers, they tend to make it through waivers. So there's not anybody in that category that I'd be worried about, but certainly the players that are in those sort of, that are in, those veterans that are coming through. Now, Abram Smith, the Saints had to pay a chunk of cash to get him as an undrafted free agent. I don't know if that's just how much they really liked him, or maybe a bit of a bidding war between them and another team or two. So that might be one that you could say that with, but I think he would make it through waivers at this point, but that might just be me being hopeful. Let's go next to Hoodie Jube, our good friend Hoodie Jube. Make sure you check out the YouTube page over there. Ross, should the Saints trade for Mike Gesicki? No, I don't think that they should. And I know that sounds wild. The reason why I say no, that they shouldn't, is because you're basically just giving up draft stock at that point for a 1-year rental, because you're not going to give him a new contract, right? Like, you've already got Taysom on $10 million per year. You've got Adam Trautman, who you're probably going to have to pay at some point here soon. And I don't think that he's going to, end up breaking the bank for you. Adam Trautman wouldn't, but I think Mike Gesicki would. So I'd be a little bit cautious about the idea of trading for him. I think you're in a good position here with the tight ends that you have. If you needed somebody that's a pure pass catcher, that's not much of a blocker, I don't know if giving up I don't know that giving up draft stock for him, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, if you're trading for somebody that's also a blocker, then yes, 100%. But Mike Gesicki is a little bit more of a natural pass catcher. You've got Taysom Hill, you've got Gardner-Johnson that already fit that category. And then finally, we'll wrap up with Aw Day, who asks, do you think that Taysom Hill at tight end is better than Taysom Hill at quarterback 3? Aw Day, I think this is a really, really good question. And I'll tell you why. I think that there's some people that still think that Taysom Hill's never going to line up at quarterback in 2022. And let me be very clear. He very likely will. In fact, I would say 99%, approaching this from a scientific angle, right? You never say 100%. 99%. He's going to line up at some point at quarterback. So I think that him at tight end and him at QB3 are actually the same thing. I'm letting out the secret. It's actually the same thing. Because if you also don't have Ian Book on your roster, then Taysom Hill kind of becomes your de facto QB3 anyway, because he's your emergency quarterback if you should need somebody behind Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. So do I think that he's better at tight end? Do I like him better at tight end than I like him at QB3? Those two things are actually the same to me. Do I like him better at tight end than I like him at quarterback? Yes, because I do think that Taysom Hill with the ball in his hands as a pass catcher or as a runner is more dangerous than him as a passer. And it's not because he's shown any type of deficiencies as a passer, as it's because he has shown excellent marks when it comes to what he can do with the ball in his hand as a runner and as a receiver. So I like him as a tight end more than I like him as a quarterback. But if you ask me if I like him as a tight end more than I like him as a QB3, technically, same thing. Technically the same thing. All right. I feel like we've been going on for a little bit longer than I usually do these shows, but I'm still going to give you today's Lanyap. I said Lanyap. I'm going to start saying Lanyap in the opening, but when we get to today's Lanyap, I'm going to call it Lanyap here for those of you that have been getting on me about it. Like I said, from New Orleans, I'm not from Lafayette, so leave me alone. Today's Lanyap is easy. Love you. Love you. Love you. This has been so much fun all throughout training camp to be able to do this with you twice a day. I'm trying to cook up ways to do 2-a-days throughout the season as well. Maybe not every single day throughout the season, but maybe we do like 2-a-day Tuesdays and 2-a-day Thursdays or something like that. So if you have ideas, if you have things that you want, let me know. Sound off in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter. Send me an email. Yeah, you could do that. You could send me an email. I'm available. So let me know. Whatever you think. And I will do my absolute best to provide to you the best quality content that I can during the season, just like I did here throughout training camp. So thank you for all the encouragement. Thank you for all the support. And I appreciate you so much, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day. Coming up on Thursday night, Friday morning, we're taking a look at the defensive side of the 53-man roster, and what we learned about the defense over the course of the 2022 offseason training camp, all of that. We'll also do a little bit of a game preview for you in there as well, what the New Orleans Saints need to do and which players you should be watching as we get to that preseason matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. And then after that Chargers game, we'll have a recap for you after I get home, after pressers and all that stuff. So we'll get all that to you as well Friday night going into Saturday morning. I appreciate you, as always. Now go and check out Locked On Fantasy Football. Locked On Dynasty Football. Get ready for your fantasy drafts. You got top 10 position rankings going on right now. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defensive special teams. So make sure you're going to check that out so you're ready for all your fantasy drafts so you dominate your fantasy league. All thanks to Vinny Iyer and the fam over at Locked On Dynasty Football. I appreciate you so much for making me a part of your day and a part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi. And for everything you need in between these episodes in your New Orleans Saints, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how your mom and them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.